Jai Jinendra. Welcome to Adult Class 2, Practical Applications of Jainism. Let's start with the Nokar Mantra. Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Aryanam, Namo Janam, Namo Loisasanam, Yeso Panchadamukaro, Sapapapanasam, Mangalam Chasamisi, Paramanamayamata. So, we are Jains. Where does the word Jain come from? Jina. And what does Jina mean?
The one with ultimate knowledge.
Jina means conqueror.
Conqueror of Kashayas.
Right. And our Kashayas are?
Anger, ego, greed, deceit.
That's right. Krog, Man, Maya, Lo. Anger, ego, deceit, and greed. And so they're in that order because that's the order you conquer them in. And what weapons do we use to conquer our Kashayas? We use Shama, Vinay, Sarlata, and Santosh. That is, Shama is forgiveness to battle anger. Vinay is humility to battle ego. We use Sarlata, which is straightforwardness in our fight against deceit. And we use Santosh, which is contentment in our fight against greed. But there is a weapon that the book doesn't talk about. And it's one that can help us actually with all of our enemies. And that weapon is patience. Usually when we hear that word, we think of just waiting. But patience is more than waiting, because you can imagine two people and they wait the same amount of time. But one is calm during the waiting, and one is agitated and angry and restless and boiling inside. We wouldn't say that they're both patient, even though they're both waiting. Only one of them is patient, right? So if patience is not waiting, then what is patience? Well, patience is the ability to stay regulated when there's delay, frustration, uncertainty, or some type of discomfort. And it's the ability to not act on the immediate need for relief of that discomfort. And so, when we imagine those two people again, we see that patience involves defeating the Kashayas, because that person is angry or restless or boiling inside. Well, those are the Kashayas, right? So, sometimes we get impatient for different reasons. Sometimes it's anger, right? Well, reality is not moving at my speed. Or I want the world to obey my timing. I don't want to obey the world's timing. Sometimes it's ego. Why should I have to wait? Nobody else is waiting. Why should I be the one that waits? Or this is beneath me to wait. Sometimes it's deceit. And it's a lot about lying to yourself, right? I'm not impatient. I'm just efficient. They don't do things efficiently. It's their problem, right? Or I'm not angry. I just be direct. Everybody talks around all the issues. I'm just a direct person. Sometimes it's greed. That is, I want that thing now, right? I don't want to have to wait. I don't want to go through this thing. I deserve that thing now. So it might seem like impatience we like to think that impatience is a small thing. Like, oh, he's not like a violent person. He's just impatient, And yeah, but none of you are violent people, right? We're all good people. We're working to better ourselves. But it's because you get impatient, that's the moment that the passion has taken control of you. And so because it's not, it's not as small as we think, being impatient. It's the battleground of the Kashayas when we get impatient. That's in your life out there when you get impatient. You're fighting the battle. Some of us don't even know we're fighting and we get rolled over and we get impatient. So patience isn't weakness, right? It's not laziness. It's not pretending that everything is fine. And patience is not refusing to act, right? When we talk about patience, you can still act. It's not just waiting for no reason. You can still speak. You can still correct something. You can still make a change in the world, make a change in your life. But it's the intention behind the act. You're not doing it from a combustive perspective because your emotions are dysregulated and it's forcing you to act. You're doing it because you want to. So if we take a look at some examples, when you're stuck in traffic, right? What is it that makes you suffer? Is it only the traffic? No, it's that suffering we add on top. And what's the reason for that suffering? This shouldn't be happening. You know, there's an accident up there and now I have to suffer the consequences. Or my time is too important for this. I can't be in this traffic. I need to be at this place. Or like you're folding laundry, right? And you say, this job is never going to end. I just did this last week. So you add that layer of suffering on top of what you're already doing, you know? Or my life should be better than this. Am I going to waste my life folding laundry all my life? Or if I was rich enough, I wouldn't have to fold laundry, right? Do rich people fold laundry? I don't know. So it's that extra layer of suffering, that's the battleground. And that's where the patience can help us with anger, ego, deceit, and greed. So when you're a patient, you might say, well, this is not a pleasant moment, but I don't have to be angry about it. Or this is a repetitive task, but I don't have to feed my ego, by hating this task. Or, well, I didn't get this outcome that I wanted, but I don't have to add that suffering by succumbing to greed, by wanting it now. I can wait for it and want it later. And so we understand that patience is a form of nonviolence, inner nonviolence, right? Because when we're impatient, we're violent in our mind. And yeah, I know. You're never going to hurt anybody. You're never going to punch somebody because you're impatient. I know that. You're good people. But is mental violence himsa or not?
It is.
Yes, right? So that's great. You don't punch people, but now the battleground has moved to your mind, right?
Can I make a point?
Yeah.
In mind? So where does Jainism stand? So I heard all the nice ways to conquer our flaws, right? What does Jainism talk about sacrifice? Where does sacrifice come into the picture? Like, and I'll give you an example. When we do laundry, right? I'm sacrificing my time so that I can do my kids and my wife's clothes. Just giving an example.
Right.
Right? So even that is of some forms of a way of conquering your flaws.
Ego, yes.
Ego, right? So where does sacrifice sit in the context of what we're talking about here?
It's a very big part of Jainism, and it probably fits most neatly into the concept of dan, or charity, right? You're sacrificing some of your money, some of your time, some of your expertise to help somebody else without any expectation in return.
Makes sense.
And so patience matters, of course, because life is full of unfinished things, right? Children don't develop instantly, right? When you teach a child a lesson, does that mean that it's over and the child is never going to make that mistake again? Hell no. They're going to keep on. You have to keep repeating the same lessons, right? If you have an argument with your spouse, after you have come to a resolution, is it over? Well, not really. You have to give it a little time, right? It can't just instantly be over and you're back to, joking around with each other. You give it a little time to die down, right? Even after you have a resolution or a compromise, right? And so once you believe you're a soul, do you get to moksha right away? No, that's just the hardest step. And then you have to do the work after that, right? And so we need patience for all of these things. So patience is peace with the pace of reality, right? We have to move at the speed that reality moves. Even though that doesn't mean don't act, right? It doesn't mean that we don't change ourselves or try to change other people, but we have to understand that it takes time. And so the next time you're impatient, try to see why. Is it anger, ego, deceit, greed? It's probably one of those, or multiple ones of those that we get impatient. And then you can ask yourself the question, well, what would it look like if I didn't have that, if I didn't add that extra, sprinkle that extra layer of mental suffering on top of whatever this situation is? What would that look like? Well, that would look like me sitting in the car, in the traffic, not getting angry, but just listening to my audiobook. That would look like me folding the laundry, not getting upset that I'm folding the laundry, but just watching TV while I'm folding the laundry. And that's what it looks like. And so that kind of would help you. And from a spiritual perspective, that patience, that steadiness isn't small. That's the battleground of freeing yourself from the kashayas. So patience is the freedom of being ruled by the kashayas while you're waiting. And then it can be just waiting. Often we don't just wait, we add that suffering on top. So any questions or comments about that? Okay, so scientifically what we call... Yeah.
Can I... So patience, like I come across this, I'm sure all of you do come across this situation wherein you are sometimes dependent on few other people, and I'm taking work as a context over here,
Right.
to achieve a goal, right? And you hold yourself accountable, you hold others accountable, but if they don't take the responsibility and accountability that they should have assumed, we all must have lost patience, right, with those people. So how do we deal with situations like that? We talk about patience, practicing patience, but when people don't take accountability
Right,
of things that they are supposed to do,
right.
how do we practice patience in that situation?
The fundamental unfairness is that you are suffering a consequence of somebody else's actions because you're a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when they fail, the team fails, and that means you failed too.
Right.
So the way to deal with that is several ways. First, understand that they failed and the team failed, but you didn't fail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the team did fail, and you're part of the team, but you didn't fail. So understand that those are separate things, three failures, and two of them were failures and one of them was not. The second thing is to understand that they will bear the fruits of their karma, and you will bear the fruits of your karma. And the third thing to do is to understand that it's a lot like the relationship with your family and especially your children. When you have a child, you suffer the consequences of their actions, which is extremely unfair. But that's what you signed up for when you did it, They threw up and they're a baby and you have to clean it up. You didn't do anything, you didn't make them throw up, they threw up, but you have to clean it up. And so once you understand that, you'll start to feel better. If you understand those three things, you'll feel better about it.
I like it. It's a good analogy.
So, scientifically, we call patience a mix of three things. Delayed tolerance, that is, the ability to accept the waiting. Emotional regulation, that is, the ability to fight the kashayas while you're waiting. Stay calm and emotionally regulated while you're waiting, which is different things. Remember, the two people, they're both waiting, but one is impatient. And then that is intemporal self-control, choosing a better outcome later than a worse outcome now. And so, scientifically, patience is the ability to tolerate delay, frustration, or uncertainty while regulating emotion and maintaining behavior aligned with longer-term goals. Well, what does that sound like? Delay, frustration, and uncertainty. That sounds a lot like anger, ego, deceit, and greed, right? So, once again, science has backed up Jainism. Science has proven Jainism right in that these things, the ability to fight these things, are the ability to have a better quality of life. And remember, Patience is not always just waiting longer for the sake of waiting. You can make immediate decisions. That doesn't mean you're an impatient person. It's what drives those decisions. If the decision was made because of anger, you're an impatient person. But if a decision was made because you think quickly and this is the right outcome and it's not going to be useful waiting later, then you're still a patient person. That's the difference between a decisive person and an impatient person. So there are a couple of other concepts that both are broader than and narrower than patience, scientifically speaking. One is self-control. Self-control is broader than patience because it's the ability to regulate impulses, emotions, attention, and behavior. So not necessarily while you're waiting, but just in general in your life. The ability to control your emotions. So patience is one expression of self-control. The ability to do that while you're waiting for something. Delayed gratification is narrower than what we have been calling patience. It means foregoing a smaller reward now to get a bigger reward later. And frustration tolerance is narrower than what we've been calling patience. It's the ability to endure blocked goals or obstacles in your life. It doesn't necessarily mean while you're waiting. So, an example. So you're practicing eating right, or you're on a diet, and there's a cookie in front of you, right? So not eating the cookie, that's self-control, okay? Waiting for something later, the healthier meal that comes later, that's delayed gratification. Not getting irritable when you're not eating the cookie, that's frustration control or emotional regulation. Because you could not eat the cookie but still get mad about it. I get mad about things I don't do all the time. Like I know you're not going to punch people because you're impatient, but you still get mad about it, right? So it's different, right? It's different than just waiting. Not getting irritable while you're looking at the cookie, that's frustration tolerance. And so if you have all of those things, so if you stay calm throughout the whole process, we call that patience. Questions or comments about that? Okay, so this class has always been about using Jane principles to increase the quality of your life, right? So we're going to skip all this other stuff. And you tell me, when do you get impatient in your life? We talked about the Jane principles. Hopefully I've convinced you that Janes are patient people and that this is the battleground of your life when you go out there. When do you get impatient in your life?
Sometimes, like if you know something, how to do it, like you're good at it, and someone is not.
That's the worst.
That
yeah.
time it's really difficult to control ourselves to let them.
Yeah.
So I work with autistic kids. So now I realize like the teachers here and schools here, they are so amazing. Like they still have a hope. If for regular child to learn ABCs or anything, it takes a year or
Right.
2 years.
Right.
This child may take 15 years,
Right.
but they will be there at some point. So they believe in that and they work slowly, patiently with those children. And somewhere they get the result, and some may not reach there ever, but still they patiently working on it with the hope,
Right.
which is amazing to watch and understand. Like
That's amazing. So, right, so people work at different speeds and we might get frustrated that they're not as good as something as we are. And the way to combat that is to realize that, well, we might not be good at something that they are, right? Or when we have a first time to try something, we want somebody patient to help guide us to do it because, and we should be that example. That's a great one.
especially with our own kids when we try to teach them cooking or anything.
Right.
That really requires
Right.
a lot of patience.
That's the number one thing, right, with our children. And because of that thing you mentioned, it's easier for us to, rather than teach, it's easier for just us to just do it, right? Rather than teach them how to cut vegetables and it takes 30 minutes, we can do it in less than a minute, right? So we would say, oh, you're going too slow, let me take over. But if we keep doing that, they'll never learn anything, right? And so, and especially when they're babies, right? A baby will exceed the patience of the most patient person in the world. Like, if this is the patience level of the most patient person in the world, every baby will push it up to here. So the books of course say you always have to have a plan, right? For when you lose control, when you get impatient. You always make sure the baby's safe, and then maybe you go into the other room and you calm down. And so children, I think, are the number one ways that we get impatient in our life. And that's because we suffer those consequences. Even when they're teenagers, we suffer the consequences of our family, right? Our family does something and it hurts the teen. And it wasn't our fault at all. It's their fault, and now it's the family's fault. And it's not our fault. And so we use those same techniques when our children fail to remind ourselves that, well, they have to suffer the consequences of their actions, and I am suffering the consequences of my actions. For me, other than children, it's the driving thing. Because even just yesterday, we were at a soccer game, and I pulled out, and the place is crazy. It's like 200 cars or whatever, all trying to get in and out at the same time. And it's just a 2-lane road, one going this way and one going this way. And so I get out, and we're waiting there, and I'm waiting there for, it must have been 45 minutes to get to the signal to exit the park. And the problem is, in the lane over, everybody is going. And I'm like, I picked the wrong one and then I realized at the end, because the parking lots are all on this side, and then there's none here. So everybody is like turning right, and there's 3 parking lots emptying on this lane, and no parking lots emptying on this lane, and I should have went that way. And I got so frustrated because we were waiting there for 45 minutes. You know, it's like 12:45 or whatever. Lunch is late, right? And I'm trying to get the kid home, and my daughter's asking me questions and trying to talk about the game, and I'm like just trying to like will this thing to go faster, and it was a gigantic mess. So the big thing for me, and that caught me off guard, because I'm used to doing it in rush hour, not on Saturday at 12 o'clock. So then that caught me off guard, right? So, but what I do during rush hour is I have my audiobooks, I have my podcast, and before I go, it takes a while for my phone to connect to the car. So during that time, I say, okay, I'm going to let people in. I'm not going to get mad when they cut me off, because who knows, whatever. I've cut some people off too sometimes. That's fine, whatever. I'm not going to take it personally. And so I tell myself that every time while my phone is connecting to the car. And that's given me saved me a lot of grief, right? And so then I have my stuff, and I'm listening to my books, and I get there, and then it takes me an hour to get to work, and that's fine, you know? But then just yesterday I got caught off guard because I wasn't ready for it at that time. So that's what happens for me. How does it happen in your life? When do you get impatient?
I get impatient when I hear negativity from other people,
Right.
especially my children. The complaining.
Right.
I don't know how to make them understand that complaining doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's just find a solution and let's work towards that instead of complaining. And I get angry at them.
Right. So which one or two is that? Anger, ego, deceit, greed? Because they complain about your cooking, right? Yeah.
Amongst other
Yeah.
things.
They complain about the meal selection. I remember, right? So which one of that? Anger, ego, deceit, greed. Which one of that do you think you're fighting in that moment?
I get angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe anger and then
ego.
ego as well,
Ego
right?
as well.
Because
I
they're
would imagine that.
criticizing what you made, right?
Or whatever it is.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right. And
Well,
so,
it's so life is what it is, right? But then
Right. why are they adding complaining on top of it?
complaining is not gonna I
Right.
understand that complaining is not gonna solve your problem.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is that they just want to complain for the sake of complaining, and they don't
Yeah.
want a solution, or they don't want to resolve it or make life better. They just want to complain about it.
They don't have patience, so they express themselves because it's inside of them, and they have to let it out.
Yeah, well, like
Right. And so, what's our weapon in the battle against anger? Forgiveness, right? So We forgive our children for being angry because they don't know better. We tell them patiently that, well, listen, if you want to help, I'm more than happy to help, and if you don't want to help, then let's try not to complain, right? And does anybody have any help? This is what this class is for, is to help each other, to support each other.
I never apply this. I'm worst at it, but I know like they just want it to be acknowledged that
Right.
I am suffering. So
Yeah.
if you listen, I'm never able to do that. But if we listen patiently and yeah, I agree with you. It's
Yeah.
not fair with this
Yeah.
or that. You say that, and you will see within a minute or two they will move on to something, because all at that moment they only want acknowledgement. And whenever I just read it on books, but I myself cannot, I'm not good at applying it, but if we, this is the best opportunity to teach them that you just acknowledge it, or you listen patiently, and somewhere after certain years they will be able to listen to their wives, their kids patiently, and move on to next one, to the pleasant environment again. But you have to, like, this is the good opportunity to teach them by applying it on yourself,
Right.
by doing it by
So what I want you to look up is those methods of conflict resolution. You'll see it in like business stuff all the time, but there's like a step. And what she was talking about is the first step, is always you validate their feelings, right? I know you're feeling like that, it must be frustrated. And then the second step is like, you imagine if it were you, like, yeah, if I were you, I would hate this too. I make these stuff that you hate, or whatever the problem is with the kids. And then the third step is like guiding them towards a path. And it's exhausting to try to do this every time they complain. But that's what I would do if I were you. I would look up those, and then just remember, make a quick like mnemonic of what the steps are, like something easy to remember, and then try it out.
I wanted to stop.
Yeah,
Don't complain.
that gets it to stop, because once they hear you're on that train again, like the 10th time, I understand you feel that way, and I would feel that way too, and here's what we should do, and next time let's do this. They're gonna get exhausted and they're gonna stop complaining.
Yeah, apart from complaining, I guess my son at times talk to me or talk to us in an irritated voice. He starts with that irritated voice and the loud voice. I'm like, okay, calm down. So this is how I handle. I have been trying. I'm still not there with him, but just an example right now. We just dropped him, and these practices are going on. He doesn't know if he's in the script. They're doing some script reading on MJK.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't know. He was supposed to email you, etc., etc. So he just went and came back. I don't even know if he opened the door. And he's like, I don't see the boys. They're only the girls who are dancing. And he came back. So I'm like, okay. So he was talking to my husband, like in the irritated voice, loud voice. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Let me talk. Let's go to the class. And the moment we reached there was a girl going in. I'm like, is there a class today? And she said yes, maybe. And the moment I opened the door, he's like, okay, let me first go in. And he's like, okay, mom, there is a class.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
sorted.
Right.
So, yeah, they at times they don't want to do things, and that's how, like you said, they don't want the solution, because maybe not every time, but they don't want to do that, and that's why they don't want the solution, or I mean whatever it is. I don't know all nitty-gritties of your, but that's what it is. If they don't want to do it or they don't want to listen, that's how they will react. We have to keep our calm and just say that, okay, let's figure out a solution together.
And the reason I know it will work is because it worked with my kids, because they get frustrated, because we do that same conflict resolution thing, and then I'm like, and if they bring up something, I'm like, okay, let's do this, and then they start groaning. They're like, no, I don't want to talk about my feelings, because we're like, yeah, let's talk about how you're feeling, and how that made her feel, and how you think you would feel if you were in her shoes. Like, no, I just want an answer. I don't want to talk about my feelings, and that's how I know that it's working. Other questions or comments?
Hey, Samir, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Another example, some of us are on spring break this week, and the TSA wait times at the airport have been astronomically high.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the first time we went, we really didn't know, and so the wait times were about 3-4 hours, and just to get on a flight. So we were impatient and a little bit scared that we'd missed our flight.
Yeah.
But then on the way back, we prepared more in advance, and it was a little bit more relaxing. So definitely impatience during spring break time was very apparent for us.
Right. So with children, one of the things to do is to not read their behavior as a personal attack against you. They're not saying, I disrespect you. Okay? They're just saying, more often than not, they're saying, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't feel like I have control, or I can't regulate my emotions, right? And so if we change our mindset into actually understanding what they're expressing, apart from their words are not what they're expressing, their emotions are what they're expressing. So the first thing we can do is we lower the volume of our voice. We talk like this, we make an effort to lower the volume of our voice. We talk slower because they're going to be talking fast. So if we talk slower, we lower the volume of our voice. That helps model what it's like to be a patient person to your children. Next, you separate the child from the behavior. If they're behaving badly, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, right? It's just the behavior that needs correction. It's not the child that needs correction, right? Next, we have to expect that we're going to do it over and over again, even for the same things. If they learn a lesson, it's not like it's never going to happen again, as we discussed. Next, we have to remember that it's those feelings that children have, they take over their mind easier than an adult because of the lack of experience. One way that people remember that is they imagine the emotion has a size. And that size of the emotion fills up a child's smaller body more easily than the size of an adult's body. That's not true, but that's a mnemonic you use to remember it. That is, it may seem like it's a small thing to you, but the size of the emotion in the child makes it a very big thing to them. And so that's one way we can try to be more patient with our children. And then we ask ourselves, right? Sometimes it's anger, like, why are you doing this again? We talked about this. I don't understand why you didn't learn your lesson, Or sometimes it's the pride you have in your family, the ego that you have, like, my child should be this. A member of my family should be this. Well, that's your ego talking, right? Right? And sometimes it's the greed that you want. Like when I got caught off guard, because I'm great at traffic now, after a couple of years. But then I got caught off guard because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared, right? Sometimes it's the wrong moment, right? And you want the moment to be different. You're greedy about the moment being different. Sometimes it's... Sometimes you lie to yourself, right? You're like, you think you're teaching them, but it's actually you being impatient. Okay? So that's kind of some of the ways we can help our children. So the easy method, the easy questions to ask yourself are the three questions, right? What is my child feeling right now? What is my child lacking right now? And what is the best way to teach them right now? And it's different every time, and it's different, even the same child, it's different depending on what the situation is. But that's how we are more patient when interacting with our children. But here's another thing. Now, how do we teach our children about patience? Not being patient with them. How do we teach them patience?
I think first thing is the action itself. Like you just said that, not just being patient, but maybe you can get a little vocal in a different way that, see, mom or dad, we have been patient with this, but the action, they just follow your actions.
Right.
So the moment you get irritated with whenever they ask you something or they want to do something and you don't allow them, but yeah, just show your patience, sit down and just talk about it. I think that's where they'll grab that nature.
Right. That's right. Modeling is the number one way to teach children. If they see you be patient, they are more likely to be patient. And because they know that actions speak louder than words. They know that different adults tell them different things, often opposing things, and it's hard to know what's right. But they do see what you do. And so modeling is the number one way to teach children. So another way to teach children is to practice patience and small amounts, not like, an hour at first, like a couple minutes at first, right? A couple minutes at first, and teach them to monitor their emotions, and they won't be patient when you need them to be patient unless you practice beforehand, when the stakes are low, right? When you're just at home and you're practicing. Then maybe it will help a little bit when you're at the airport, or when it's like a situation that's with more stakes.
So I have a question here. When we say practicing patience, so is it that if there is something coming up, like we are going to the airport, and we know after 2 days we are going, and we just tell him to be patient, or how do we practice? So is there anything on a routine basis to practice patience, or would it be just related to what's coming up and we practice that?
Both. So one way to practice is, hey, this thing is going to take a minute in the microwave. Let's stand here instead of doing that other thing. Let's stand here and let's breathe while we wait for this minute to go. Another thing is, hey, we're going up to the airport, right? And then you take them through what it's going to be like. And it's going to be a long line, and we're going to be there for an hour, okay? So here's what I do. I think about what's coming up. I look at the different people, I see how long the line is coming. I do these different things. And so we do both. We practice in a totally unrelated situation, and you also prepare them for that situation coming up. So another thing to do is to make what we call make time visible. Because patience, the hardest thing is that you don't know when it's going to end. I don't know when this traffic is going to clear up. I don't know when this line is going to start moving. I don't know that, and that's really frustrating because we feel like if we know, we could get through it. And so that's great. With the maps, I'm like, I know this traffic is going to end in 10 minutes and it's going to end in a mile. I made it visible. With the line, you know it's going to end because you timed yourself. There's these 10 rows, and then it takes 10 minutes to get through one row. So we got 9 rows left, so we got 90 minutes. Okay, so you just make it visible, right? And when you're practicing something, let's say you're practicing at home, you can say, okay, let's do this. Let's sit in this car until this song is over, and then let's get out of the car. And we'll practice like that. Or you put a clock in their room, right? And you say, when for little kids, when it gets past this time, that's when we can do this, right? So you make it visible because then they're looking at the clock, and then it's the clock's problem, right? It's not their problem. It's like, not passed yet? Okay, I'll do something else and I'll look at the clock again. So you make the time visible.
What about the times when that's not an option?
Okay.
There are things where it may not be a defined time.
Sure.
I have an example for that. I was about to ask that question if anybody can help. My son, he's growing now, he's 12. So he doesn't want to come with us for maybe grocery or any other stuff, maybe his shopping. Now when we tell him that you have to come, he would say, okay, how much time would it take? I mean, we don't know. 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours. If we are supposed to go to 2 stores, also I wouldn't know how much time would that take. And he binds us by that.
Right.
So I don't know how to tackle that when we start. And after starting, for example, if we say, okay, we'll be back in 2 hours, he would be like, it's already 2.5 hours. And I don't know at that time how to tackle.
Okay. So what we have to do is we have to acknowledge that it's uncertain. Don't give him a time.
Yeah,
Say,
that's what I.
it takes as long as it takes. That's what Mr. Bull says, okay? It takes as long as it takes. And just tell him, I don't have a time for you, but here's what we have to do. We have to go to this store.
Yeah.
We have to get this item.
That's what I.
We have to do this. We have to do this. We have to sit through whatever traffic is on the way. I can tell you that it'll be done when we do these 5 things, but I can't give you a time. And that's how we make it visible. Because it's not a time that's visible, it's the events that are visible.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, so then on the 3rd thing, instead of complaining, he knows he's just got the 2 more things left. Right? And so that's how we make it visible.
Yeah, give them the itinerary of what we're doing.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
And sometimes make them part of it. Like you do this, I will do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do. So out of like whatever we said, maybe 4 stores, 5 stores, I would say it would be easier for mama. You know, if you go grab this veggies and fruits, I can grab, but the other stuff you can go and grab it because you know where to go. So yeah,
Sure.
it makes it easy, obviously.
If he's so concerned about his
Start
time,
with this difference.
yeah, say it'll be easier for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just for me, right? It'll be easier for you. We can get this all wrapped up and done if you help in the process. So we have to make them live with that uncertainty because that's what life is. Nobody can tell you at any time what any time is going to be done. So we want to make them aware that it's uncertain.
So in some ways, you're taking a situation for them, which may be perceived as something where they don't have any control, like going to the grocery store,
Right.
and giving them some sense of control of it by saying, okay, well, here is a list of things, and then from that, maybe some things where they can take ownership, which then, again, is like taking a situation, like when I see patients in the hospital, often, like, they are in a situation where there are things happening to them because of what they're suffering, and the only thing we can offer sometimes are smaller portions of things that they can control, because there's a lot of things that they can't control,
Right.
and that creates a lot of fear and anxiety. And so often, sometimes we try that, okay, well, here are things that you actually can change that'll impact this portion of it, and so giving them that even smaller amount of control makes the situation a little bit more tolerable for them.
I like that a lot. I've had a lot of luck with that because we had a lot of complaining from our children about the things we do, like if we're on a vacation, right? And they don't like the things that we do. And then we realize, well, we have to start asking them. And if we give them ownership of it, then like, okay, we can do these things. What do you want to do? And then 1 or 2 things they pick. And so then they look forward to it and they thought they're part of the process. So, you know, and when you go out on errands with your son, what are the things that you need to get done? Do we need to pick up anything for you? Let's put that on the list. Or at the grocery store, do you need anything for yourself at the grocery store? Let's put that on the list. So allowing them to take ownership of it is a great way to limit the complaint.
That's a good thing.
Other questions or comments?
I think like patience is just the hardest thing in every way because it just like when I think for me many times like I have to just try to make myself like remember that okay life will change or can change, does change, and like now you just have to like do the things for it to change rather than thinking about when it will change because like I know like y'all talk about kids, but like for me it's all about like marriage. Like
Right.
like right now I'm trying like hard to like look for a guy, but like
Right.
there's so much like junk out there. Like you're just like, oh my god, I can't see like one
Sure.
more like there's just so much like in that like the marriage aspect like that you deal with like
Mhm.
that you just have to like expect. But like I mean it's like in everything, like career, like any type of like we're basically trying to reach some goal all the time, and it's just like that's what you have to remember that okay well it will be reached eventually. So
You're right. That includes a little bit of everything that we talked about. Let's say you're trying to find a spouse or you're trying to find a job. 2 are very similar. It's unknown, it's uncertain when it's going to happen. There's a lot that's out of your control. Not a lot, but there's enough that's out of your control, especially the selection process. The person you select has to select you. The company you like has to like you. So that part is out of your control, right? And there's only specific things that you can control. if you help focus on what you can control, that will help it, and it's an uncertain outcome, right? And so you're right. Those kind of things cover a lot of what we talked about today, and that is why we talk about moving at the speed of reality, right? You have done the things in your control. You have done, you've reached out to different people. You've looked at this avenue for people. You've done the online thing. Those are things in your control. You've done that. Then you have to wait, right? You've written the resume. You've applied to all these places. You've done your research, and then you have to wait, right? And what is that? Is that anger, ego, deceit, or greed, right? It's probably a little bit of ego, probably a little bit of greed, right? Why isn't this happening for me now? This happens for everybody else. It's not happening for me. Is it something I'm doing wrong? It can't be something I'm doing wrong. It must be all these other people, right? So if we use it as the battle, if we recognize it as the battlefield it is to fight these battles, I think that would be helpful.
I think the other thing that makes patience hard is that it's like a state of being versus a state of doing. And I think as human beings, we're very good when, at least I was just like speaking for myself.
Right.
I have a checklist of things I need to do. I'm very good. I can check off the list. But when it's a state of like just being,
right,
that's hard because there's nothing concrete. Like it's just like be patient. It's hard to know like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? No, just be. Like be patient. And that's hard. I think it's hard to quantify.
With the digital life, it gets we are becoming more impatient.
Yeah.
Then it's nothing to do.
Right.
Yeah, and so that is definitely a hard part. But you can turn the being into doing if you find it hard. Because remember, it is a battle. And you can turn the being into fighting your enemies, into breathing. You can turn it into a checklist. It'll be a very small, very granular checklist. But you can turn it into a checklist. And one of the reasons that it's so hard is because we talked about patience being this conglomeration of different things: delay, gratification, frustration, tolerance, the ability to wait. The problem is that each of these is a different part of the brain, okay? And so a patient person is one that has developed all these different parts of the brain. The reward system is based on the brain region called the ventral striatum, okay? And it helps determine how, among the different options, what the different options are, especially when one is available now versus at some indeterminate time in the future, right? So this is called intertemporal choice research, and it's governed by the ventromedial prefrontal cortex in the ventral striatum tract of the brain, okay? And a separate part is what we call the control system, which is controlled by the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex part of the brain. That's where we talk about self-regulation. This future simulation system, that is, what part of the brain is activated when you think about the future? That's a completely different part of the brain called the hippocampus and the medial prefrontal regions. It helps you imagine future outcomes, okay? So it's okay if you're good at some of these things and not good at other parts of these things because they are governed by different systems. And it's only when all these systems are working in concert can you call yourself a patient person. So it's okay to not, when you start on this path of I set a goal, I want to be a patient person, it's okay when you stumble because it's so complex and complicated.
So then, I love that scientific research behind what contributes towards patience, biological sense. So then, I'm assuming meditation is a big piece of that too, right? Like you asked about how do we practice patience. I would imagine that meditation would be a key part of being able to practice patience in that case.
Yeah, you mean mindfulness? Yes, absolutely.
Mindfulness,
is one key way to practice patience. That is,
Right.
we can't know we're being angry unless we are mindful, because sometimes it takes us and we don't even know, right? So if you're worried about when class ends, I can make time visible, then you'll know it ends in 9 minutes, right? So that will help regulate you, right? So then you're not as worried about, well, it's gonna end some uncertain time and I'm sitting here. But I can put that in front of you and you'll know it'll end in 8 minutes, right? Yes?
And even nutrition as a Jainism, like if we look at that way, the nutrition you get, like if you eat really all fried food, like somewhere what the way we eat in Jainism, just
Tamasic
eat loki,
food.
turai kind
Tamasic
of thing,
food.
which calms your brain or body down.
Yeah,
It may
that makes a
help,
lot of
like-
sense. Yeah.
I am skeptical. I've heard this thing. I eat certain foods and I become calm. Or I think it might even be in the book. I eat certain things and I get hot, I get passionate. You know, I understand, okay, yeah, I eat a pepper and I start sweating, okay? I understand that, right? But I am a little bit skeptical about that. Does anybody have any success with this? I eat certain things and it calms me. Or
Like for instant example, coffee might like
Right.
you drink coffee
stimulant,
and
sure.
you get little hyper
Sure.
as compared to normal.
Yeah.
But it's good for some things like where you want to get things done. But if you realize like it's making you really angry quickly, then you can cut down
Yeah,
on that.
I totally agree with that. I'm not skeptical about that. I'm skeptical about the things my mom tells me, like you should eat these types of food. They're good for your chakras, or they're good for calming yourself. Or I'm skeptical about that stuff. I'm not skeptical about stimulants and depressives and things like that.
Well, the only comment I would make on that, I don't know all of the scientific research behind it and like what exactly specific, but inside your body, you have a bunch of friendly bacteria, which are called the microbiome. And the types of food you eat in your diet impacts what those bugs do, and it has a lot of implications for diseases. And so I wonder if some of the things that are proposed, like in Ayurveda, with the types of food and the impact they can have, and like you should eat certain foods together and certain foods should not be eaten, all of those things, I wonder if there is like some scientific basis that we don't have an exact understanding of yet, but we know that for sure that certain foods do have different impact because of this gut microbiome.
Right.
And in fact, we like tell people to eat certain types of food to populate their intestines with this specific type of thing that has a health benefit.
That could be great.
Good to know.
That could be a way science proves Jainism true again. If
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
study that correlation,
Yeah.
and we say, oh, you do get more propensity to anger if you eat these certain kinds of food because you have these certain kind of bacterias, and that gives you this inflammation, and that inflammation makes you upset, and you're quick-tempered. Yeah, that might be true. That would be great. I would love that.
There is an analogy in the history, if you've heard about Shivaji Maharaj, when he conquered the Pratapgarh fort, like when he killed Afzal Khan,
Uh-huh.
he applied that information, like he understood what his body type is and what makes him irritable, and he infiltrated a cook in his army and gave him that food, and then he became impatient and made bad decisions, and those bad decisions led him to his death. That's something.
great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like when we see the Maharaji, like just biting this much portion and just loki, moong dal and all that. Like when I think about it, like they're the most calm people and they sustain so well until 70, 80, like till previous Maharaji. I have hardly seen them getting sick or anything, and they're not eating any good best protein or best organic food, but just loki, turai and moong dal. That's really basic nutrition you will think, but they are surviving so well, so maybe there is something in there.
Yeah, my mind is open. You've opened my mind. I'm going to take the things my mother says a little bit more seriously now.
Especially the whole concept of fiber, right? I used to never take this seriously, but now I've gotten a habit of eating a little bit of fiber before having my actual meal, and it helps significantly.
Helps with
Right,
portion
like
control
simple
things
things
like
like an apple 15 minutes before I start eating, or broccoli. That makes a significant difference in how I feel for the entire day.
Okay,
I think there is some science behind it for sure.
that's great.
Yeah.
Even when a Gujarati meal is served, you eat roti and shak first, which is good, and then you eat the rice.
The rice
on top
afterwards,
after,
yes,
right?
100%.
So that is definitely some chemistry and like how you're supposed to digest the food.
Correct. Yep. And even in our rice, they actually always recommend to mix ghee.
Ghee, right?
And there is also a reason behind that because rice converts into glucose, but then it does it in the process slows down or something.
Mhm.
Because of the fat in
Because of the fat, yeah. So there is a lot of good things our ancestors have left for us, which we don't pay attention to.
Well, thank you so much for your time this week. I really appreciate that. And remember, we got to practice what we preach. It's easy to say it in here, but once you go out there, then that's when the battle starts. Okay? So just remember that. I don't forget that. And it's not easy, and I know it's not easy. It's easy to say, and it's easy for me to say all these things. It's very hard to do, and we're here to support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.